Rangers might have to face Carolina because they're in a wild card spot. Could happen.
Oh, enough with this. Jeez, you're just too much. And if
It
the
can very well happen if Pittsburgh wins those three matchups and they're tied in points. Like
I
hypothetically,
I'd
just
hate to
looking at
see you if Pittsburgh was actually any good. This is what I say. Like if
it.
Pittsburgh was a good team, I'd be like, "Oh my God, you'd be unbearable." But I mean, hi and welcome to the show. This episode, we talk about the NHL East and West playoff races and try to predict who will squeak in. We also focus some of our discussion on the Detroit Red Wings and give our takes on whether or not Stevie Y can turn this team into a contender down the road. And lastly, we chat about a team that is currently in a playoff spot, but danger lurks around the corner if they don't make some key decisions soon. Will the Islanders and Penguins be able to hold on to these last two wildcard spots, or will one of the other teams make them sweat it out? Will the Red Wings regret signing Dylan Larkin to that monster contract, or is he part of a new winning era in Detroit? Will Winnipeg continue down the road with this core, or will they move on from key pieces like Wheeler and Scheifele with contract decisions coming sooner than later? We're back and ready to share our views and opinions for anybody that wants to listen. So please, take a load off, relax, and welcome to Hockey for Fanatics. I mean, there hasn't been too much going on, I guess. Like, if you guys want to talk about the Leafs, we can talk about the Leafs. I don't know how jazzed you are to do that.
I'd rather talk about something different that interests you two as well. Like
I'm
it's,
in. I agree.
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
Well, we got a playoff race, right?
yeah.
I
Let's
think we
talk
all.
about like the Eastern Conference race, or like who do you think's going to make it? Who do you think's like choking now? Like I don't know, just whatever you guys want.
I
I'm
think
easy.
I think that's a decent idea. I like that because I know we started to touch on it probably in the last pod when we started to talk about Buffalo. I think we talked a little bit about. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, I guess we can talk about. Do you want to talk about both sides or just the East?
Both sides.
Yeah, I
I
guess.
I say we start with the East and then see what how
Okay. All
how
right.
we do regarding time, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, that's cool. Is it fair to say that the top three spots in each division are locked? Like we don't have to worry about those?
I think so.
Or am
I mean,
I?
the Rangers have to go on a huge spill. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, like I just wanted to set the table so that we're all unanimous that like basically Boston, Toronto, and regardless of how they finish, it's going to be Boston, Toronto, Tampa, and then
Yeah.
Carolina, New Jersey, the Rangers again. And regardless of how which order or positioning they finish, we're just talking about whether they're going to make the playoffs, right? So those are pretty much
Well,
locks, right?
hold on, there is one problem with that. I think we may have one person in this panel
Oh
that
man.
still thinks Rangers are going to fall out and miss the playoffs. I have a feeling that there's one person
Man,
that still thinks that's going to happen.
Florida's 9 points out.
Florida's,
You
Florida's
really
nine
think,
points.
eh?
They're
The
nine
dream is
points from the
still
Rangers.
alive.
but Florida's not Florida's in the other
That's
division.
amazing.
So they're gonna have to. It's gonna have to be like
Yeah, but
Washington.
if the Rangers keep losing like this, and you see the bottom teams winning, like Florida's on a 2-game winning streak.
Sure.
They're on their
Nah,
way.
the Rangers are gonna get on a roll. You'll see.
And they got Buffalo and Ottawa breathing down their neck. Washington, Detroit.
Those teams
Uh,
are all done. Those teams are all
Detroit's
done.
done. Yeah, Detroit's done. Florida, Ottawa, and Buffalo are probably the closest ones, but
Well, yeah, you got
I
well,
don't know.
okay, but if we're gonna include the whole bunch, it's so right now the Islanders and Pittsburgh are clinging to spots, and then you got
Yep.
Florida, Ottawa, Buffalo, like you said. Washington's still there. They're tied with Buffalo. I mean, they've got a couple of games extra that they've played, but they still have the same amount of points as Buff. And even though Detroit, like I still think Detroit's still in the conversation. Like it doesn't mean that they're like I'm not saying I'm going to put heavy money on them, but they're
They've
still
dug themselves a hole because like they've been horrible in the last 10 games, and like that's where the problem is. Is we got to look at the last 10 games, and that's where they've been blowing it. Same with Washington.
Yeah, Washington. Yeah, they're 3-6-1, 3-7, 3-7. So I mean, but a lot of these teams, even Buffalo's only 500. Like Ottawa's really been the only one that's been doing okay. Pittsburgh's 500. The Islanders have been playing well. So
Yeah.
Detroit messed up on that back-to-back against Ottawa. They got blown out both games. That was their season right there.
Yeah.
That Ottawa series was a TSN turning point for them. They Ottawa literally dominated them both games.
Yeah.
Like Brady Tkachuk, like I know a lot of people aren't fans of the Tkachuks, but I loved them. That guy showed he single-handedly just took over the game, like just the way that he played, he was a force. And it's very rare to see that you can see like one guy just have such a incredible effect on the game like that. That's impressive. Like I love that.
I think he's the type of player though, like not disagreeing with you, but I know I hate him. But he's the type of player that you hate when he's playing against you, but when he's playing for
Of
you,
course.
you love him, right? So maybe
Marchand, Tom Wilson, all those guys.
Exactly. There are tons of guys that are
But
factors.
you would give your left nut to have him on your team.
It's true. It's true. And
who did Detroit have to answer that bell? Honestly,
Nobody.
Who do they have? But that's my point. Is like Eisman's got to address that. Every team has to address within your own division. There's always every team has. Well, okay, not every team, but teams that have a guy like Tkachuk. If you don't have an answer for that, he's going to intimidate your team. And if you don't have an answer, you're not going to beat that team. I don't see Detroit getting better unless they address that issue, because you got to put up with now Greenway on Buffalo. You got Boston, who's always rough and tumble. You got Ketchup, who plays on Florida, his brother. So if Detroit doesn't address, and I'm sure Eisman will, but that's definitely a huge hole that they're missing there in Detroit. That physical aspect.
You really got to know your opponents, right?
Bertuzzi was that guy.
No, he kind of is, but I never consider him one of those. He would never. I don't put him in the same level as Tkachuk, in my opinion.
Well,
I like him, but I don't put him in that category.
Okay, but yeah, okay, maybe he's not as good, but I would agree that he's that type of player, but they don't have him anymore, right? Like he was traded. So, but I understand what Giancarlo was saying. Like Bertuzzi might not be a Tkachuk because Tkachuk has got size. Bertuzzi's a little bit smaller, but he's still a guy that is going to stand up. Like he's not going to back down.
Sure.
And I think that sometimes that's all you really need. You don't necessarily need to. Not saying you don't need to win a fight. That doesn't, because sometimes you got a guy like, I remember Montreal had a guy like Tom Kostopoulos, who, poor guy, like he would fight anybody, but he would get his ass handed to him every single fight. I felt bad for him, but he would stand up for his teammates, right? And you're like, oh, here comes Tom, and they called him TKO on purpose. So terrible, so terrible. And it's like, but you got to love the guy because he comes to your aid, but he would just get killed. But I don't think Bertuzzi is like that. I thought he's a little bit smaller. Yeah, he's a little bit smaller. But
did you guys watch those games? I tried to watch as much as I could, but I didn't watch the full game. Did anyone respond? Bertuzzi was there.
No, I watched I watched most of it. The toughest part for me was when Tkachuk literally challenged the whole bench.
It's true.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it, bro. Like I'm telling you, I watched that and I'm like, please.
That happened before the deadline?
Yeah. Yes. That was what ended Detroit's season.
That was it.
That told Shanahan, okay, I'm selling. Because Detroit they had no answer for it. Detroit does have guys like Sider's a big monster, but he's not gonna fight. Like he's not really gonna be your fighter. And they got Perron, who's another guy that he's a rough and tumble guy, but he doesn't fight, right? But he's like, look, he'd be the toughest guy in the Leafs. You know what I mean? Like pre-trade deadline, he'd probably be the toughest guy by far. Like Perron, he's a St. Louis Blue, right? Like didn't he come from the Blues?
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, that guy could go. He could throw him too. So
well, he's more of a, like, I'm not saying he's dirty, but he's a guy that's he's not gonna back down again, but he's not gonna do it with where he's
No,
going to stare you
right.
down. He's not going to
He's
stare
a
you down or
better
anything.
He's
bunting.
gonna pick his
You know,
spots. He's
bunting.
gonna pick.
But that's
He's
okay.
a better bunting. That's the way I look at it. Like, he's a shit
Yeah.
disturber, but
Yeah.
he can actually, he's better. Like, I like Perron
He's got
better.
a lot of
Like,
hits.
he can play your power play and stuff too,
Yeah.
right?
He's been on so many teams. That guy.
Yeah.
So many.
He's been around for a while. But
Hey, he's won cups.
but
So
that's
that presence.
but back to like Tomas was bringing up another guy, right? Like, yeah, Detroit. I don't know about this Detroit team. Like, I'm a fan of Yzerman, and maybe it's because as a Montreal fan, I start to look at the future, right? Like, you start to look at who is going to be that team that is going to be challenging your team, and obviously, I'm thinking of Montreal being a contending team in the next couple of years. So I'm trying to project and say, okay, Boston's going to start to fall off. Any of the teams that are up there right now, Tampa's not going to be able to last forever. Toronto, we'll see what their salary situation looks like. They're going to have to draft some players eventually in order to fill in some of those holes in their lineup when some of those guys leave. So I'm looking at other teams in the division and saying, what is everyone else going to look like? And when I look at Detroit, I gave Yzerman a lot of credit, but I don't know about this team, man. Like, I don't know if this core is good enough. Like, what would their core be? What would you say Detroit's core is right now?
Raymond, Larkin, Cider.
Not enough.
Yeah, I don't know if
No,
that's
but
enough.
that's their start.
Zadina looks
What
like
start? It's not like they're 20 years old. Those guys.
You're right. You're
No,
right.
listen. I think we've covered this before. He does not have an all-star defenseman in Hedman. He doesn't have an all-star goalie in Vasilevsky. He doesn't have a trio up front like Kucherov, Stamkos, and Point. He doesn't have that. I mean, Tampa Bay, God bless them. They had some nice draft picks. Some of them in the top 3.
They did.
Detroit does not have that luxury. I'm not saying that Detroit will never get to that point, but in my opinion, they're not even close. And I think the fans there are kind of ready to start going forward. And by the moves he made, like you guys mentioned, Perron, Kopp, is this Sherratt? He's made moves that are for now or for next year, not for 3-4 years from now.
It's true.
So I think that, based on what I've seen, he's ready. The rebuild is done there.
I don't know if this core is. I don't know. Again, though, I don't know if this core is enough. Like, we'll see what they have.
I don't.
Giancarlo, do they
I don't
have
think-
anything that like other than this goalie? I think I know the goalie. Was it Kosa? Is that his name?
Kosa, yeah. Kosa is a really high-end goalie prospect, and he's by far their future. As soon as they're ready to bring him up, he's going to make some noise. They do have other good like prospects that are coming up too. Like, they're not dead in the water like some teams. Like, they have some good little guys coming up, and the problem is guys like Zadina and Veleno have not met expectations. They're not showing that they're top 6 players, so that is a bit of a slowdown for them. But they got Cider, and to me, Cider is going to be a top 3, top 5 defenseman for the next 15 years. There's maybe only a couple guys I would rather have, and Makar being one of them. So I mean, they got him. If Kosa turns out that he's going to be a lights out goalie, and I don't know, they definitely need some more pieces. I think that they're going to be one of those ones that really target those big free agents when they hit the market, because that's what they're going to need. But this is a good year for them not to be in the playoffs and for them to get a good pick, because there's so much good picks out there this draft, and they're not ready. They're definitely not ready. They've definitely shown that they're not ready, but they're not as far as people think either.
Oh, don't they have 3 first-round picks this year?
I think, do they have 3? I know they had at least
they have
2.
Boston. Is it Boston's? And they
got 2. I'm looking at it right now.
They have Vancouver's. Don't
No.
they have Vancouver's?
No, they have the Islanders and their own this year. They have second-round
Boston
picks.
They get Bertuzzi. What about for Bertuzzi? Didn't they get a first?
It's next year, I think, isn't it?
Oh, is it next year? Okay.
For Bertuzzi, it's next year, correct? Yep.
Hey, look, you know what? Goalies, I love goalies, but prospects are prospects. We've seen all these goalies named, watch out for this guy, watch out for that guy, but they're funny. Goalies are very funny.
They are. They're definitely
We
unpredictable.
don't know. We don't. It's very rare a goalie comes up that's been touted and takes over.
But those are the guys. But either way, the point is, those are the guys that are going to need to lead them. And I know we're talking a little bit more about the future because I don't know if this team has what it takes right now to get into the playoffs, right? I know we were starting
Huso's
to
not a
talk.
bad goalie though. Huso's pretty good. Like I think he's very underrated, and I actually like that signing when they did it. He's been good. The team hasn't played great in front of him, but he's had moments where he's been really, really good this season. I don't think his
Yeah,
numbers are too bad either. Like
but he
he's not a
just
bad
reminds me of
goalie.
a very good backup goalie. Like he's not like I guess he's just a stopgap for Stevie Y. You know, he wasn't going to waste major assets on a number one when they weren't ready. But like right now, I'm looking up at this list. Their number one prospect is called Simone Edvinson. He's a defenseman. He's of the
He's a
left-handed. He's got
monster.
size. Yeah, he's got size, strength. He's like apparently another Sider, but just
Yeah,
left-handed. So they're saying he's going to complement Sider. Fantastic. He's dominating the AHL right now.
he's six
The,
seven, isn't he?
yeah, and the second one is Marco Casper, and he's a big center. And they're saying that he's basically a Sorelli for Tampa Bay clone. You know, so he's projected as a second, third line center. Like he's two-way forward. He plays hard every shift, et cetera, et cetera. So you know that's okay. But this goes back to Dave's point when he was saying they're still missing that superstar element still. You know, to carry the team to the next level. And that's why I was really surprised that this year that they made those moves to improve the team rather than just tank one more year. Because of all the years, why would you want to push now? Because a Bedard is exactly what that team needs, that number one center, because then it'll slot Larkin perfectly into the 2C. And then now you're talking, right? But now, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows
It's
what they're
hard to
going to
argue.
do?
I
Stevie
think
Y is
Snyder is
good,
their
but I
superstar though.
wonder if he's a little overhyped. You know what I mean? Like everyone thinks he's this master genius, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
We'll see how this turns out.
I think the more we talk about it, the more we learn. It's not rocket science, right? The players that are the best players in the league are the ones that are drafted at the beginning of a draft. So that's what Iserman kind of went in with that philosophy to do, and he ended up with Sider, and he actually lost the draft when the lottery when he picked Sider, if I recall. So Sider was a home run pick for him because I think what did he get picked sixth or something like that or
Eighth or
fourth?
something. Yeah.
I think he was eighth, and I know
Yeah.
Sider well from that draft because in my fantasy draft, I think I took him around 12 or 13 because I was following him, and he was very under the radar. He wasn't even supposed to go in the top 20,
And
and I
Was that
remember.
the Kachuk draft?
No, I don't think it was.
he was picked
Sider
2019
is only
sixth.
20.
He was picked sixth overall, and it was in
Oh, it was six.
the Jack Hughes draft. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So a couple teams passed on him, but he wasn't even supposed to go at six. He was projected to go late first round, early second round. And I remember I had a lot of people like laughing at me when I took him because they're like, "Why would you take that guy?" And I
Nice.
mean, he's like my bragging rights player because he's turned into that. I think he's going to be an elite defenseman.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
he's shown it.
Either way, though, Detroit. But my point is that Iserman is a guy that believes that you're gonna have to build your core at the front of the draft, and you got a player like this, and this is a guy that's going to be part of that core. Lucas Raymond, okay, he's having a pretty tough season though. Like I picked
He's
him.
been hurt though.
Yeah,
He hasn't played a full season.
yeah. I mean, he was doing all right. I have him in the pool, so I was following him from a distance, but he was doing okay, and then he just fell off. Like you said, he's been battling injuries and stuff like that. So, but I don't know. I don't see anything else. Larkin for me doesn't wow me. Like Tommaso said, I think he's a 2C. So how are they going to fill that gap? Like I'm sorry. Like these are foundational pieces that you're going to need, and maybe he's going to say, you know what, with a goalie that's going to come up, that's going to be a superstar, and this other defenseman that's going to come up, maybe that's going to be the piece that you dangle to trade for a guy that's going to fit at your top. But I don't know. We'll see what Eiserman does. I think he knows his talent. So, and I think he knows Like when he traded Drouin to Montreal, I know that
Yep.
like everyone was like Drouin was an asset that had been devalued, and I know Montreal was probably the worst case scenario, like to get him because of the whole French thing. But Yzerman picked the victim, and he got him right, and he ended up getting that Sergachev piece that I don't know if Tampa wins without a guy like that, right? So I think Yzerman knows his stuff. I'm not willing to sell him out yet.
Yeah, I think he's just had a little bit of, like I mentioned already, like players that are just not producing that we're supposed to. Like Michael Rasmussen is another one. I think he was a top 10 pick. Just
Yeah.
these guys aren't panning out, right? So that kind of stuff ends up hurting you.
Well,
And
you got to pick the
Carlo,
right guys, though. But yeah.
what about the guy that just got traded to Vancouver? What's the deal with
Oh.
that guy? Like,
Which
wasn't he
one?
supposed to be a big deal?
Which one?
Hornak. What's his name?
Yeah, he wasn't he supposed to be a big deal for Detroit?
I mean,
Like,
I don't know. I think he's like mid age. Like he's okay. Like I actually still can't believe Vancouver gave up a first round pick. I don't know.
can.
Yeah, but
why?
like
Vancouver's
not,
an idiot.
Because it's Vancouver.
but he's not a big point guy. Like he's more of like he's like a really really nice third line kind of guy. So I just don't know why you're giving up a first round pick for that when you have so many other problems with your team. But I don't know.
Well,
He's never going to be a
Hold on, you're talking about Roenick?
You're
Veronic.
talking
Philip
about the
Veronic?
defenseman.
He's a defenseman, right?
Yeah.
Defenseman. He's a right hand.
He's a right-handed. That's the key,
Yeah.
right? That's what it is. This
yeah.
extra value, which means like someone like Justin Hall is worth a first round or two. Then like, come on.
Yeah. Well,
I thought
if
he
you
was
heard
forward.
the GM speak about him, he was like, "It's so hard for us to get good young right-handed defense right now. That's
Mhm.
why you have to pay a premium. And when one becomes available on the market, you can't. Like, it's almost like you can't miss it. You have to take that shot because they've been trying to get defensemen for the past 2-3 years, and they've had such a hard time. So they said, you know what? One became available, we had to take our shot."
Right.
And that was
Okay,
their
but-
explanation on why they did it.
But you do that when you think you're you're a player away or two. But this is Vancouver. They were a bottom 4 team at the time.
I agree.
I would never trade with Yzerman, but that's me personally. Yzerman is a smart guy. He's a smart guy, man. He knows when to get rid of guys.
It's true. So far, anyway. I the only thing again, this Larkin thing, I shake my head at because I would have thought we'll see like I don't know, maybe the value isn't there. I don't know. There are a lot of conversations that we don't know. So if it were me, I would not have looked to sign this guy. I would have looked to trade him personally instead of signing him to an $8.7 million contract, which he just did. But then I'm looking at Larkin's contract, and he has a no trade clause for the first 5 years of this deal, and then it turns into a modified no trade clause with 3 years left in the deal. So I think that leaves a window of, to trade a guy, but it's going to take 5 years. It's still a long time to commit to a guy.
Yeah.
And he's 27, but he is getting his prime years, I guess, in that
Let
deal.
me ask you, Mike. Let me ask you, Mike, because you said,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I think most of us think he's a very good second line center, and that's the kind of the going rate.
Yeah.
8 to 9 million, right? So let's say you didn't sign him and you let him walk. Where's he going to get his number one center? If he's trying to make the playoffs next year, well, this year he tried.
Right.
Obviously, he's going to try next year. Where's he going to get a number one center?
Yep.
I think he was kind of stuck there where he had to sign him.
Yeah, and that's why I said I
Exactly.
would have made the deal. I would have made the decision prior. I guess that's all I'm saying. Like I'm not, you can't go into a time machine and go in the past, but I wouldn't have let it get to this point in time, is what I'm saying. I would have said, especially when I look at where my team is at. Like it's one thing if you're contending and you're like, okay, I'm contending and I got a guy that's a UFA and I gotta take my chances in the summer. But if your team is nowhere close to winning, which they're not, and I look at the teams around me in the division, which are way better than me, then I'll be like, why would I commit to this guy? Like he's been leading my team nowhere, you know?
But when was the
So,
last time they made the playoffs? 6-7 years ago?
yeah, it's been a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
No,
So,
but
I mean-
here's the thinking though. If Stevie Yzerman's looking at this last year, right, like in the summer, and he's like, okay, I got Larkin for one more year. I need to either trade him or extend him. Let's see what we got. He adds a couple pieces and so forth,
Yeah.
and his intentions is to improve the team and get better. Now, regardless how Larkin does, if he ends up trading Larkin, what's he getting back? He's getting back picks, right? So those picks are not going to be improving that team for at least 3 to 4 years from now. So now you're extending that window even more.
Right.
When he wants to start getting better now, the next year, 2 years, etc. So trading Larkin really was never an option. Like
No.
if you go based on what his timeline is and what his intentions are, like trading Larkin would set that team back so far. They wouldn't even have, never mind a top number 1 center. They wouldn't have top 6 center, right? A legit.
No, it's true. It's true.
So they'd
If
be
he
screwed.
once he signed Cop and he signed Sherratt and Perron and Husso, that's it. He was all in for
Yep.
this year. He wasn't. The rebuild was done. I think, like Mike's. I think I'm with Mike. I would have not signed those guys, and I think
Yeah.
was it you, Tommaso, said one more year
Yeah.
of. I don't
Yeah.
want to call it tanking, but one more year of rebuild.
Yeah.
I don't think would have pissed off a lot of people, but I
For
guess
sure.
after 6-7 years of not making the playoffs,
Has it been that long though? Like,
I don't know. I don't
It's been a
remember the last
while.
time they were in. I think
who
the
did these
last time
guys
while.
they were
get
in, they
then?
played. I think they played Tampa the last time they made it. I think, and Datsuk might have been on that team. I can't remember, guys. It's been that long.
No, but I mean,
I
like,
think it was 2016 the last time they made it, right? Because that year they picked 20.
but how
I
long?
think Datsuk was still playing, and Zetterberg. They were all still there.
Hmm.
Guys, my memory's getting worse. I can't remember, but I think that's the last series they played.
I'm just trying to
Oh,
see who these guys
that's what I'm
got though.
saying.
Like, if they've
Well,
been so
that's what
bad,
I was telling you. They haven't panned out, these guys. Rasmussen, Zadina, Valino. The only one who's really panned out is Sider and
1,
Raymond.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years they haven't made the playoffs. This will be a 7th if they don't. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. This is where, and I'm not sure when Yzerman took over. Like, we have to be fair. Like, when did Yzerman take over?
3 years? I want to say at least 3 years, because he wasn't there when Tampa won the cup.
He drafted
Second one.
Sider.
The second
That's
one
right.
he left mid-season.
No.
Yeah,
He left he wasn't there for
never,
any
he
of them.
did not win the
No,
cup.
no.
He did not
He
win
was
the
there
cup.
the first
No,
one,
no,
wasn't he?
no.
I don't think so.
100% no.
No.
No, 100%.
Yeah, no, he
You
didn't win
sure?
the cup.
100%. Check it out. I remember
Yeah,
thinking, because he was a consultant. He was a consultant for them. He was not the general manager. He had relieved himself of his GM duties.
But he left mid-season, right, of the cup year.
he wasn't GM at all.
He
Like,
was not the GM. I think it was before the year. Let me see.
he stepped down, or so he said, "I gotta spend more time with the family." I can't remember what it's something like that.
I'm gonna check.
I know he joined in 2019 because he drafted Sider, and Sider was a 2019 pick.
Yeah. Step down
But,
as
well,
GM.
all I remember is they won the cup that year, and during that cup
He stepped down before the
victory
year.
speech, they gave like a whole
Yeah,
reference to Stevie Y and his influence on the team and
yeah,
his
for sure he added it
fingerprint on the
for
team.
sure. But he stepped down before the year.
April 19 is when he stepped down.
No, I'm looking at it in.
They won in 2020.
What date are you looking at? I'm looking at September 11th. Where do you see April 19th?
September 11th, he stepped down from general manager, and then he went to an advisor for Tampa Bay. But he
Right.
left as an advisor on April 19th.
That's what I'm saying. So he moved it. He stepped down as GM in September. September the 11th. And when did he leave his advisor position?
April 19th.
So he left
2020.
He left even.
20.
Yeah, he must be.
So
Yeah,
that
but he's
means
still
during
part of the
COVID.
organization, right?
No, but in April he left. He left.
Yeah.
But either way, he was he was not around for the cup, but no question he had his fingerprints on it, and
Yeah.
so you got to give him credit for that. But either way, back to the original point. Like, so what date? So when did he come to Detroit? Let's go see that.
The same day, April 19th.
All right.
He stepped down as a senior advisor and took the general manager job. So he's been GM
2019. So his first draft was essentially 2019. So he has been
most Sider.
So he missed 4. He's missed 3 years of playoffs then, because
Yeah.
it was too late. He came at the end of the 19 season, so he basically started 1920, 2021, 21-22. So this will be his 4th year out of the playoffs. So I guess his philosophy, if you look at it, like he got 3 years of picks, and he's going to go from there. That was looking at, if you look at his offseason last year, like we said, he started to sign all these UFAs, spend some money. I don't know. Time will tell,
I
I
agree with you.
suppose.
I think, like you guys mentioned before, Philip Zadina has been a huge bust.
Yeah.
Huge bust.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember who went in that draft. I had him because he was top 7 for sure. I
That-
just don't
What-
remember.
Was he the guy that was mad at Montreal for
Yeah.
passing on him?
yeah.
Was that the guy?
Yeah.
And he talked all shit. Like
Yeah,
he
he
was all
said,
like,
"I'm gonna fill
"I'll
your
show
net."
you."
No, he said, "I'm gonna fill your net with pucks or something."
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. I
So-
remember that.
so
I was
that-
thinking, you got some balls on you, kid.
Yeah, it
So
didn't turn.
Yzerman drafted him.
Yeah.
No.
No,
Yzerman
it was
did not draft him.
pre-Yzerman.
What do you mean?
Cider was the first player he drafted, and that was in 2019.
Oh, yeah,
was
yeah.
218,
That
wasn't
makes
it?
sense.
You're
That
right.
makes sense.
Yeah, you're right.
But what hurts is Quinn Hughes was 7, and so he took Zadina over Quinn Hughes. Noah Dobson was still available. Like there was still talent available.
All right, so
And
folks,
Let's be honest,
Zadina was
that w-
supposed to be good. I mean, these
Yeah,
are
but
prospects.
that wasn't a great draft from what I recall. It wasn't a deep draft. So I mean,
It wasn't bad. It was. There's been worse. It wasn't the best draft, but yeah, I mean,
Montreal
there is-
passed on to Chuck. I think that draft.
let's not talk
Yeah.
about this.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to bring that.
You're bringing up
saying-
old wounds.
Well,
Uh,
I don't like to talk about Bergevin. Bergevin wanted Kachuk too, but I
Did he?
knew. Yeah, he did, but
Was that Kotkaniemi draft?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah.
this hurts.
what
so
happened,
much.
Mike? I want to hear this story. I
Wait,
didn't know
go
this
for it.
story.
Come on, you knew this story. So
No, I swear I
no,
don't.
but I mean Bergevin. It's funny for
But
all
he's
the,
the GM,
for
right?
all for all
So,
the
I mean,
heat for all the heat he takes, and I give him a lot of it. There were a couple of picks that he went on record after the fact saying that he wanted to take in the team. He ended up going with his head scout. So one of them was actually Morgan Riley. So he wanted to take Morgan Riley instead of Galchenyuk, and he was convinced otherwise by Trevor Timmons, I believe. And then the other guy is he wanted Brady Tkachuk, and he was convinced to take Kotkaniemi because of the organizational need at center.
For
And-
center.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and-
heard that too.
Right. But I mean, this Kotkaniemi thing, there was a huge narrative that was being pushed. Like this guy came from out of nowhere, which I always get irritated when I hear because I'm never a fan of a guy that just becomes the hotness, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like the Slavkovsky pick because you really can't judge a player on one tournament. If a player has one stretch of time that's good, you always have to. I would always pick a player that's had that consistency and the pedigree, right? When you're trying to define a pedigree of a player, it's not just one tournament,
For sure.
right? And
You
that's
need a
wh-
large sample size.
yeah,
right?
and that's what you're really trying to do at this level when you think about it. You're looking at a player and saying, what can this guy be? I'm going to pick the best player, right? And I think you're reaching a bit if you look at a guy that just did well in a particular tournament. But anyway, yeah, there's no real story to it other than Bergevin wanting these players, and he ended up going with his scouts because these guys had seen him more. And in hindsight, both of those, I don't know if you would say Galchenyuk. Maybe Riley would have been better. Who knows what Riley would have looked like in Montreal? I don't know, but probably better value-wise than what Galchenyuk is. But then again, Montreal ended up with Josh Anderson as a result of Galchenyuk, so I guess we'll see how that turns out when it's done. But yeah, like anyway, back to Detroit. Like I'm trying to look at all their drafts. So they picked Sider. They picked Giancarlo probably knows all these. They picked Raymond. Raymond was a 4th overall pick.
Yeah, but if you look at the 2020
And then
draft,
they got
they did
Edvinson.
well.
They got Edvinson, like Tommaso said. And then
And Casa in that same year. At
and then they
15.
got this Marco Casper guy that Tommaso mentioned as well. So those guys aren't ready yet, but maybe they are, and I guess, or maybe they'll be ready next year or the year after. So he, I guess, wanted to bring them into a situation where there are veterans on the team and they're not being thrust into positions of failure. So I suppose I can understand from a building perspective why he would have made that move. But when you see Bedard staring at you in the face in one more rebuild year, I don't know. It's a little tempting. All right.
Okay, so what about the next team? So if we're looking at the teams right now, like what would you say is the team that, like personally, I would think Pittsburgh and New York are going to make it, right? But if you were to choose between the other teams that are possibly going to make it, Florida, Ottawa, Buffalo, etc.,
Yeah.
who would you say would make it?
I like Ottawa. And the reason I like them is because I like when goalies get hot, and I think that right now they have Sogard in net, and if he can get hot, I think he's gonna put a string of wins together. And their roster looks good. I mean, they got Kachuk, they got Stutzel is amazing. Uh, Pinto's had a great first season. You know, Giroux's there for leadership. Like they have a good team. They have all the like their defense is a little bit weak, but then they added Chikrin. So I mean, it's not terrible. Like they, I don't know, they have a pretty interesting team. Like when you look at them and the way they've been playing, if they get hot now, this is the time to get hot, right? And who knows, they might sneak in.
The one knock to Ottawa right now is they have, I believe, the one of the hardest schedules moving forward. They have 11 road games,
Ouch.
so they are in for it. Like when a team gets on a roll, they get on a roll. It's irrelevant, home or away. It doesn't make a difference. But 11 away games and all these games at once, it's going to be tough. I think Ottawa's got in a really tough stretch. The Islanders and Pittsburgh actually have a pretty easy schedule in comparison to Ottawa and the others. So we'll see. We'll see how that matches up.
What about Buffalo? What does their schedule look like?
I just don't want to believe in Buffalo. I mean, I just don't think they're there yet. Like you look at their team and their bottom six is just not, it's nothing special. Their top six is great. It's hard to count out Thompson and Darlene, but goaltending too is such a big question mark.
Yeah, it's tough to
Puck's
say.
out now too, right?
It's tough
I
to
don't
see
know how
these
long
teams.
Puck's out.
It's tough to see
So
these
Buffalo
teams.
has the 6th hardest schedule moving forward, and
Ouch.
Detroit has the 3rd, and Washington has 11, Florida has 15, and then Pittsburgh and Islanders have 19 and 21st respectively. So they're like, so here's the thing I was telling actually my wife, because she kept looking at Islanders and they're like, oh, look how many games in hand. So it's kind of, like it's not as easy as you think it's going to be. I'm like, true, right? Because in terms of point percentage, they might be a little low, but you have to remember, even though they have like 4 or 5 games in hand, that doesn't necessarily mean that team's going to win those 5 games in hand, right? And your schedule down the road just means that it's going to be a lot more compressed. You're playing 4 games a week rather than Islanders playing 3. And that's the difference, right? Because your team is going to get burnt out. So it's hit and miss. Like you can have a team get super hot and then regardless, it'll be fantastic. But it also might be what's happening right now to Buffalo and Ottawa. You sort of have too much in such a short period of time. They just run out of gas, right? Because like Ottawa lost huge games in the past couple of days, and they went from like this incredible series against Detroit, and then they went completely flat like the next games. And I don't know, that's tough. Like even Buffalo, the hardest one was they had a back-to-back and they lost both, and that significantly hurt their playoff chances.
Every game matters from here on out. It's already been like that.
To be honest with you, just I've completely the past couple of years, especially when I saw Montreal and the Leafs, that playoff series, like it really broke me in terms of in this league, the best goalie wins. Like it's so stupid, but it's true. Like if you look at the teams that are going to make the playoffs, you just look and see who's got the best goalie. And that will give you an understanding of where they're going. Like look at Minnesota as a perfect example. Minnesota was horrible, But now all of a sudden those two goalies are playing at a 950 clip. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And now all of a sudden they're first place. Like that's
Yeah.
all it is. The goalie league.
Nah,
If your
Fleury,
goalie
Fleury was
does well,
struggling.
They
Yeah,
play
he
a
was
defensive
struggling.
style, but they play a defensive.
sure.
They're like the Islanders in that way.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't trust them. I just don't trust a team like Minnesota or the Islanders to be a true cup contender.
No,
but
no, I would
I
never.
No,
know-
no, no. Cup contender is a different story than just like if those teams get in the playoffs, I would be worried. Like a team like Edmonton, I'd be very worried to play a team like Minnesota because they beat the crap out of you every shift and they smother you and they give you nothing. Like you don't get no easy globetrotter goals. Not against them. They make you work for everything. And that's the last thing you want for an Oiler team, a Toronto Maple Leaf team, a Pittsburgh Penguin team, like those teams that are built on skill, like even New Jersey, like New Jersey Devils, like the second period and third period against the Leafs smothered them, completely smothered them. And New Jersey, who is this run and gun, completely crazy offense, looked very quiet. So, like that to me is very scary because look who they're facing in the playoffs, the Rangers.
Mhm.
And Rangers play exactly that type of hockey. So I don't know how that's going to work out for them.
I don't know if I 100% agree with you on the goalie thing. Like, I get it. Like, if you have a good goalie, you're going to have a chance to win. But we already talked about the fact that there aren't that many elite goalies anymore. So I would say it's more of the team in front of you. Like, people may not give Montreal credit against the Leafs, but they had everybody pulling in one direction. So, uh, myself included, I was counting them out, but every single guy on that ice gave what they had, and what they had wasn't a lot, but it was enough apparently, right? There's that old adage about hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard, and that's really, I think, was the difference maker. Rather than, like, goalie plays a role for sure, especially when you're an offensively anemic team. But I think that
For sure.
you're looking at, you have to look at the whole philosophy of the team, blocking shots, whether they're going to sacrifice, whether they're going to work that much harder, they're going to give that much more. And if you're not going to match that intensity as a team, you're in big trouble. You're in big, big trouble, right? So,
Oh yeah.
so that's where I
And
would say,
remember, they didn't just beat the Leafs, right? So it's not like
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
fluke one-off, right?
Oh,
They beat 3 teams
well,
that were supposed to be much better than them.
they rode, yeah, they rode whatever you want to call it. People call it luck. I think they worked for it, but at some point, it, that ran out, right? When you run up into a good team, which is what I'm looking to build, and that's why I say, like, maybe it's harsh and maybe people think, oh, it's unrealistic, but I'm like, no, it's not unrealistic. Those guys are like it, are like that. I want to compare myself to the best. I don't want to fluke my way to a cup, like, I would take it. Trust me, I would take it even if you win a fluke cup, but it's like you would want to be a team that's in position to win for a handful of years. That's really the objective
For
of,
sure.
of building a team. You don't want to just have a one and done, appearance, which is what Montreal was. So, but I mean, but back to Buffalo, like, or any of these other teams, I don't know, man. I just don't see anybody. Maybe Florida, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Florida's been one of those teams that people were expecting them to falter, and then they seem to be doing okay, even when they've been battling injuries.
hmm
But I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to catch those two teams that you mentioned. So I
Is
guess if
there
I had to pick
anything
one, it'd be Florida.
on Kachuk? I heard he got hurt last game because that's huge. If Florida Kachuk is gone, so is Florida because he's been by far their best player this year.
I didn't hear anything about him.
Well, Tommaso mentioned it, but
Um,
I don't
yeah,
see
he's in
anything.
their lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's good to go. See?
Edmund's out.
Oh, but this
Yeah.
is March 6th.
But they said that's a day-to-day thing. That's nothing too serious. So they got lucky on that one.
But he's injury prone, so I'm sure it could be a nagging injury he's had in the past. Who knows? But I mean,
I
that
hope so.
team is ripe. That's for another day, but that team is ripe right now for the taking.
I don't know, Dave. You sound like me a couple years ago. I remember when I had my
When
playoff.
am I optimistic about the Leafs?
No, but
Mike? I'm never.
I remember seeing Hedman. I remember going into a playoff pool, and I saw Hedman yelling and screaming because he was so mad. So I'm thinking this guy's hurt. He's not He's not ready. Something's wrong. And I remember picking, who did I pick instead of him? I passed on him and I picked, it was a good player. He was either like Point or Stamkos or anyway, I overlooked Hedman and I took somebody else. And then Hedman ended up being the top point getter for the rest of the way. And I'm like, this piece of shit, I didn't, I remember
Yeah.
basing it on that reaction where he's hurt and he's not going to be okay. And then this guy just played lights out.
Yeah,
35 minutes.
he's a leader. That
35
guy is
minutes.
a pure.
Yeah.
He's an animal. That guy.
We'll
I'd
see.
take him on my team any day.
Nah, for sure. Who wouldn't? Jeez. Give me a number one defenseman any day.
So I think we're all in agreement
Yeah.
that all of them, Ottawa, Buffalo, whatever, they're kind of fizzing out. And if anyone, maybe Florida, I guess. But
Yeah.
I think the idea is we all think Islanders and Pittsburgh are going to hold on, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just to end the subject, like it is possible, I suppose, because if injuries happen, like there's still 20 games to go, right? So
For
if
sure.
if injuries happen, anything can happen. So I wouldn't say that it's a foregone conclusion or anything. It's just we're looking at the strength of the schedules.
I think
Okay.
Florida, I just quickly looked at the schedule for Florida. They got some winnable games. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
they got Chicago, Winnipeg, the Habs, Detroit, Philly, Montreal again. They got Columbus, Ottawa,
Oh wow.
Washington. It's not impossible. It's not impossible if they go in a heater. But I mean, the odds are against them because I think Pittsburgh has a couple games in hand on them. But you never know, right? I mean, look at it this way: Pittsburgh loses tonight, it almost solidifies the Isles as being in, and Pittsburgh then battling it out for the last one. Because
The problem with Florida is, again, winning percentage. They're a 538, and Pittsburgh's got a 579, right? So it also goes down to overtime losses as a tiebreaker, and Pittsburgh has 9 and Florida has 6. So those are two things that are going against Florida right now.
no,
And
it
again,
is.
Pittsburgh's at 63 games played, and Florida has 65. So Pittsburgh
Well,
still has 2 games in hand.
I
But
think
you, for sure,
the tougher schedule is Pittsburgh. They got the Rangers 3 times. I think we mentioned 3 times in a week. You lose those 3 games, you're done.
That's cake, man. That's cake.
there he is.
They
He's
win
back.
they win those 3 games. They take the Rangers spot in third place, and
Oh my god.
Oh
you're
my
Penguins are
God.
fine. And then now the Rangers are breathing in fire.
That would be amazing. I would love to see that. I'll be honest with you. Just the intrigue and drama alone. That'd be good.
Please, Giancarlo, pick Columbus to make the playoffs. They're freaking dead last. Okay, come on.
Yeah. Hey, I can go on a whole tangent on why they're in dead last.
Dead last. Dead last.
Attention sport card enthusiasts. Looking for a convenient and reliable way to expand your collection? Look no further than Fanatics Collectibles Canada. This online shop is your one-stop destination for all things card sports, from vintage to modern, from football to hockey to basketball and more. They even got some bench warmers. The selection is second to none, featuring rare and exclusive players from top players and teams. Whether you're a serious collector or you're just starting out, they will have something for you. And with their easy-to-use website and secure online checkout, you can browse and purchase cards from the comfort of your own home at any time, any day. So why wait? Visit the online shop today at www.fanaticcollectibles.com and start building the collection of your dreams. With their vast selection, unbeatable prices, and dedicated community, you're sure to have a winning experience every single time.
The West is not much. It's really hard. Like I'm looking, the Abs have been mortal all year, but now they seem to be finally getting their legs under them, I guess. And then Landeskog's going to come back for the playoffs, I suppose. So it's tough to, because I still see some other teams that are bouncing around. Like as far as the wild cards go, Edmonton and Winnipeg are in there right now, and then Calgary is on the outside looking in. So, and Calgary's like 4 points behind. So I don't really see anybody.
It's Calgary or Nashville, because Nashville still
4
has a
games,
shot.
yeah.
They're 4 games behind, like
4
almost the
games.
whole
They
thing.
have 4 games in hand.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do.
against most teams. So I mean,
Nice.
and they're not that far off. But I think it's going to come down between Calgary and Nashville. I think everybody else is done.
Really, including Winnipeg?
No, I meant from non wild card teams right now, because
Oh,
Edmonton
okay.
and
No,
Winnipeg are in a
because
wild card.
yeah,
Yeah,
Winnipeg is the
Edmonton's
one that's going to drop. If anyone's going to drop, it's Winnipeg, I think.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I
And
agree.
and the team you're saying is Nashville will overtake them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he's saying
If they
Calgary
do?
or Nashville.
No, like if you look at the East, you have like 5 or 6 teams that are still like not technically eliminated. Like they can go on a
Oh,
huge
I
run
see
and
what you're
make it.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the West, you literally have Calgary and Nashville
Yeah, those are
looking
the
in,
only
and
2
then
teams.
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, those are the
Yeah,
only 2
everything
teams.
under Nashville is done. St. Louis,
Everything
Vancouver.
else is just positioning, right? And I think that so again, it's tough to say Calgary. Like Calgary's been a real disappointment this year, like big time.
They've lost a lot of 1-goal games, Mike. Have you looked at their
Yeah.
record of 1-goal games? It's disgusting.
It's 13 overtime losses. Wow.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
I
that
have a
is
feeling
crazy.
Calgary's going to sneak in. I think Winnipeg's going to pull a Winnipeg, and they're just going to, drop the
Like,
ball here.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's upsetting though, because Winnipeg's had a great season up until the last like 15, 20 games.
Yeah, they've been playing bad recently, and I think that's the thing, right? Markstrom, he just needs to play 900 save percentage hockey, and I think Calgary gets in, and he's finally starting to play a little bit better. I don't know, and Calgary's, and even that team, if they squeak into the playoffs, I wouldn't want to face them because they're exactly the type of team you don't want to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
The way that they have their veterans, the way that they play hard, and again, it always comes down to the goalie. If Markstrom could just
rematch.
get back to normal.
Could be a rematch of last year, Calgary and Dallas.
Well, the
boring.
Pacific's interesting because there's nobody who's run away with it yet. They're all pretty cool. Like Edmonton
Yeah.
is in the first wildcard spot, but they're a win away from tying Seattle. And even Calgary, they're 9 points out, which I guess
Freaking
that's
Seattle.
quite a reach.
That's
Seattle's
a
won
close
5
division.
in a row. They've come on again.
Yeah, Seattle's playing with a lot of heart, and again, they got Matty Beniers, who's a rookie. Like that guy's giving it all every game, right? He's going to win the Calder this year, I think.
Yep, I think so.
But LA is another one that I don't know. I don't see the hype in LA. I think LA could still fall off.
Do we see enough of LA? Honestly, I don't watch
I
like the
like
West
LA.
Coast. Like I can't
I
really judge
like
them,
them?
right? So
I do. I like them. I think
Yeah.
they're awesome, especially with
Yeah.
Corpusalo now there. I think Corpusalo is a legit goalie.
Yeah.
He's got playoff experience. I love their centers. Their defense is nice. Like they got Gavrikov on the left side, who brings a little bit of physicality and defense. Doughty's Doughty. That guy's a leader. He's a horse. So he's finally healthy. Like compared to last year, he wasn't, and that's huge, right? He's your leader, and you're missing him against like in a playoff game. So I think LA Kings are going to be a tough team to face.
What about Vegas though? You guys think Vegas could fall off?
Fall off
I
from
don't
what?
think
Like
so.
first in
No,
the division, you mean, or like to not
Well,
make the playoffs?
even miss the playoffs.
No,
It's an
I don't.
option.
No,
right?
No, I
no,
don't
no,
think so.
no. They won't
Oh,
miss the playoffs.
You think
They
that they're
got
going to make
82
it?
points.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see them missing the playoffs.
It would be really tough to see to them
Yeah.
not make the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, it's possible that they would finish in a wild card, I suppose. That they're only like 4 points ahead of Edmonton, so it's not like it's insurmountable, right?
So do you guys have Vegas, LA, Seattle locked as your 3 making it in the Pacific?
Why,
Edmonton maybe?
right there.
Edmonton's right there. So
Edmonton has the easiest schedule. They can easily win that division.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
So-
This is hard to handicap at this point because like you don't have. I don't have any confidence in any of these 4 teams to say, yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
I don't either.
Like I think that the 4 of them will make it. That's what I think. I think the 4 of those teams are gonna make it, right? They'll make the playoffs. So
I'll be
If
honest, when
Seattle
I
was
look
in
at the
the
West,
East, they don't even make it.
no, they
right?
would get eaten alive.
They get murdered.
When you look at the West, the only team here literally that I can see even making it to the finals is Colorado.
Like I
Come
just,
on, that's not
I'm
right.
I'm not sold on Dallas, and Minnesota. I think is just hot and cold. I mean, I like their goaltending a lot, obviously, but I don't know. Edmonton. I mean, I'm never going to count McDavid out. They can also, I think, go on a run in the playoffs, but I don't know. It's hard to really see anybody other
Yeah.
than Colorado make it out of this conference.
I won't disagree with Giancarlo here. Like there's something in the West that I don't know if it was that shift, that Kachuk trade. I don't know. I don't know
For sure.
what it was, but something just when I look at these teams, nothing scares me in that way other than Colorado. But even Colorado lost. I think they're not. Are they as good as last year? I don't think so. I think they're
No, they
No.
took a
still a
step
great
back.
team, but they're
But remember, they're losing Kadri
Yeah.
and their captain all year.
no, but
That's
Yeah.
big,
no, but
right?
Landeskog's going to be back. Kadri's obviously gone, but Landeskog will be back from what I hear
Yeah.
anyway. So they're going to be tough to beat. Like I still think Colorado. I'm with Giancarlo here. Like if I'm going to have to pick a team from the West, I think it starts with Colorado, and then I know we've talked about Edmonton before because of McDavid, and those guys are just
Yeah, you can't count out
they
McDavid.
they
You just
just
can't.
can't be stopped. They cannot be stopped. Like the Edmonton is going to lose because the rest of their lineup doesn't do what it takes. Edmonton will not lose because McDavid and Draisaitl doesn't show up. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I agree.
They will do their thing. And I think as the third team, I think Tommaso I like LA as an outside chance because I mean we saw their with that infographic you sent today, Giancarlo, where they're like the fifth youngest team in the league or something like that. That was really surprising to me. Is that
Well,
Then you got to be.
the quick trade must have helped.
yeah,
But
sure.
you got to be careful with those. You almost got to split it up where, okay, but is your core, what age group is your core, right? Because, like I said, Buffalo's up there. Aren't they one of the youngest teams?
Sure.
How,
Sure.
but then you got to look at, okay, divide that. Okay, what's the age group of your core 5, core 6, whatever your core is?
Right.
I think that's the key, right? Because I mean, you look at Tampa Bay; they're the oldest team in the league, or the second oldest.
Yeah, they are.
No,
But that
Pittsburgh was the
you're
oldest, I
right.
think.
It's
But their core is old. You
their
know what I
core
mean?
is
So
old.
it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. But you're right. It's not really an indicator. I was just surprised to see LA up there. That's all. Like when I was like, okay,
yeah,
like that to me, because if I'm looking at New Jersey and I'm looking at LA,
yeah.
those to me are two very, I guess, different teams. New Jersey comes across as a team that's way more like young bucks kind of thing. I never really would have thought LA was. And I'm looking at LA's roster right now. Like their core is and when I say their core is probably like their 4 or 5 best players, I'm going to name 6 of them. They got Fiala, Kopitar. I don't even like some of these guys, but they're there. Adrian Kempe, Victor Arvidsson,
Brody.
Dano, and Doughty. I
Yeah.
would not put Victor Arvidsson in a core. I would not put Adrian Kempe in a core. So for me, it's Fiala, Kopitar, Doughty. And if you want to, I don't even think Dano is a core player. So that's me. So you would really hope that those other younger players that they have, like Quinton Byfield, would eventually start to play and make some noise. So, but either way, I still like LA's chances. They've built a solid team and they still have that veteran lineup that can, win a playoff round. I would not want to play against them. It's really tough. Seattle's probably the only team that maybe I just don't give respect to. Maybe it's because I just don't know them enough yet. Like, how are
Well,
these
that's a
guys
good point.
winning? I don't.
No, they're not bad. They've had some really good goaltending out of Jones, which is
Like
kind of weird.
Crazy. That's
Eberle,
crazy.
McCann, Vince Dunn, Beniers, Burakovsky. Like,
Well, Beniers is legit. Beniers is a legit top
sure,
center. Like he's gonna have a long career, I think. McCann, yeah, that's not a core guy. Eberle's not a core guy. Schwartz, Strad, yeah, I know what you mean. Their team isn't anything exciting, but I mean, it's kind of like when Vegas
Martin
first came into the
Jones.
league.
Yeah,
They're just gelling. They're playing well. They're a bunch of misfits with Youngin and Beniers, and they're trying to prove that they're still good NHL players, right? And
right.
they're excelling in the West. Like Tommaso mentioned, they had no chance in the East. They get eaten alive.
Yeah, I
Can
don't
I ask
know.
you guys a question?
These guys.
If you guys, because I'm gonna forget after. I know I'm gonna forget. It has to do with playoffs. So, let's see, Vegas is in first right now, right? 82 points.
Yep.
What happens if they were to play, let's say, Minnesota in the semis, who don't win their division? Vegas wins their division, but Vegas has more points. Who gets home ice? Has that changed? Because it used to be if you won your division, you're going to get home ice versus a team who didn't. Has that
Yeah,
changed at
no,
all?
I'm pretty sure it's still the same. Like if you win the division, you have full ice.
I think that sounds right.
Even if you still get less points than the team
Yeah.
you're playing?
I think
Yeah,
so.
Ooh, that's
I think
brutal.
there's four locks. You have the 4 divisions, the 4 top teams. They all have full ice. That's the reward for finishing first. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on it, but
I just think that's bullshit, but that's me.
I love how Dave comes up with these scenarios, like these last, like 3% chance of happening.
No.
It's possible though.
You know why I'm asking is because you look at certain matchups, like if Boston goes out and Carolina gets to the semis and they're playing, let's say, Tampa or the Leafs, who have more points, is it fair that they get home ice?
Yeah.
If they're in a weaker division, like the reason they got that many points is they're in a weaker division, most likely. Or I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud because I remember in the past
It's
it
true.
was always if you win your division. I think it was Carolina actually a few years ago where
Yeah.
you remember when they had the conference top 8.
Yeah.
And Carolina would always be slotted in third.
That's right.
And they
That's
had
right.
way less points than people in the playoffs
That's right.
below them.
That sounds right. That sounds right. And I don't think they changed it, Dave. I think that it is you win your division, you're gonna get the priority seeding in the semis.
Oh, that's fine.
We'll see
Wow,
though.
okay.
I mean, I think that's what it is, but I think we'll maybe I'll look into that before our next pod and see if I can get confirmation. But I think it was if you win your division, you're gonna get that priority.
Okay. I mean, hey, whatever. I mean, they do it in football and people don't like it, right? Where I guess this year was the Bucks versus the Cowboys. Cowboys had a way better record, but
Yeah.
you know, because they're in a bad division. I think that's what I was trying to say before.
Yeah.
If Carolina's in the worst division, they win it, but
Right.
you have those 3 teams on the other side battling it out, have way more points. How is it that they deserve to not have home ice? I guess, but it's gonna be fun though. I have this. I think that every matchup this year looks on paper looks great right now.
Yeah,
If you were to look at it right now.
it's true. It's tough because you don't want to get too pumped because things could still change. It looks as though we've been
Yeah.
looking at Toronto and Tampa for a long time, and that's not going to change those. So that's pretty cool. But the Metro division it's still a toss up. Like New Jersey could pass Carolina, and then you got a completely different first round matchup for both of those teams. So
What
hey,
would you guys rather see? New Jersey versus the Rangers or Carolina versus the Rangers?
Jersey Rangers.
Oh, I agree.
That's
I
a
agree.
rivalry. That's a
Yeah.
rivalry. Carolina's kind of just a misfit team in the Metro. I mean, they don't have any big rivalries the way because when you look at the big rivalries, it's the Rangers, Jersey, Penguins, Islanders, and Capitals and Flyers, right? Like that's kind of the Metro. Like that's always been the rivalry teams, and then Carolina and Columbus kind of got thrown in when the alignment happened, right? So that rivalries are just not really there.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel the same. Battle of New York is way better than Jersey Carolina or Rangers Carolina. But hey, the Rangers might have to face Carolina because they're in a wild card spot. Could happen.
oh, enough with this. Jeez, you're just too much. And
It can very well happen if Pittsburgh wins those 3 matchups and they're tied in points. Like hypothetically,
I'd hate to
looking at
see
it.
you if Pittsburgh was actually any good. This is what I say. Like if Pittsburgh was a good team, I'd be like, oh my god, you'd be unbearable. But I mean,
oh man, we just need a goalie. We just need a goalie. Carey Price
Corpusalo,
available.
man. We covered this. Corpusalo was there.
I would have taken him, man. I would have taken him.
well, either way, everyone, the cards have been laid. We'll see what happens in the next little while.
There's one team. No, honestly, when I think of this one team, they're the most interesting team is the Jets.
The Jets, why?
Have you looked at their contracts?
Oh, you mean like from a team building perspective?
But you think about that if they miss the playoffs again, all these guys that are available to trade and totally do a huge rebuild. between Hellebuck, between Wheeler. They got
Scheifele.
Dubois, Scheifele.
This is what we talked about on one of our first podcasts.
It's true.
I remember that, and it's true. The only real player they have locked up long term is Morrissey.
And Connor.
Well, Connor is a couple years, but still, yeah.
Those are some amazing. Like, can you imagine Hellebuck on the trade block this summer?
Well, and we were talking about Detroit needing a first line center. Mark Scheifele's available.
Yeah. How old is he now? He's got to be around
29.
30, no?
29.
Yeah, he's getting to that age where you got to be careful, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. But you got to be careful if you're a team that's going to be rebuilding. You might not necessarily have to be careful if he's a final piece, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So if
having
you can
him
get
and
him for 1
Larkin.
year, yeah. But you would have him for 1 year under contract because he's got 1 year left.
Well, you'd have to extend him. This is a guy that you would have to, like I said, you'd have to kind of mortgage a little bit and realize that you're going to be paying him well past his prime. But I wouldn't have a problem with it if you're gonna literally
He's the
add
missing
him.
piece.
Yeah, if he's
Yeah.
like added to, like, I'm trying to think of a team that I would consider really close. Like, who could we say is a team that's really, really close that you add a centerman and all of a sudden they're going to be over the top contenders for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of a team.
Well, Buffalo kind of. Buffalo is not far.
I mean, I don't know if I would say.
That's
I don't know if
hard.
I would say. Yeah, I don't know if I would say it would make them an instant contender. It would make them better for sure. It's
Maybe
gonna make them
Jersey.
better.
Maybe Jersey. Like there's
There's no room left.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
Jersey's-
they
they've
have their
already
1
got-
and 2.
They've
Yeah.
already got their thing. Yeah, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's tough. You got to find that spot. But I think that if you look hard enough, you could find that team. Like, maybe this is gonna sound nuts, but Edmonton.
Ooh. That's
Yeah.
gonna be the most. Yeah, maybe they're gonna be the most interesting. But how are they gonna fit him? They already
Well,
have no space.
They'd have to get Nuge out of there. That would be the
They
thing.
just added what's his name? Ekholm, 6 mil for next 2-3 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, they are the most interested team because I mean, Calgary had their chance, Vancouver had their chance, Winnipeg has that opportunity now because no one
Right.
wants to play there, guys. They got to totally build from the draft up and get homegrown guys that they put through their own system because they're not going to attract those big name free agents. These guys are getting to that age where you got to be careful. Dubois does not want to be there long term. This is the most interesting summer for them in terms of having to do something that's going to change that whole what they've built until now. It's got to change, especially if they do not make the playoffs. That's going to look horrible after that amazing start they had.
Yeah.
Like, how do
Yeah,
you?
it'll be sad.
Let me ask you guys. You're the GM, and you're going to next year with all these pending UFAs. Wheeler, we say Scheifele, we said Hellebuck. You got to make a decision. This is the Calgary Vancouver situation where you got to make up your mind. You're either going to rebuild or you got to sign all these guys now.
Right.
I mean, you got to do something, right? Oh man.
No, it's
gonna
true.
be interesting.
You're right though. Like, that's what it takes when you're a GM. You have to start to project, and that's why I would say that it's tough now because some of those decisions I probably would have already made, right? Like, based on the trajectory of my team and whether or not I would consider my team to be a contender, but they were kind of in this no man's land for a long time. So it's hard
True.
to say. I'm still going back to this. Who would be able to fit a Scheifele? I don't know. I can't really think of a good.
That's a good question.
Maybe
There's a-
Vegas. Would Vegas be okay?
Can
Yeah,
they fit,
Vegas
can
would
they
need
fit
him.
anybody else that team? Holy smokes! It's like they can fit all these huge contracts. in
Well,
their-
I'm
their-
looking. They got Barbashev is
do
going to be
it?
a UFA. Bluger is going to be a UFA. Kessel's going to be a UFA, and Quick is going to be a UFA. Aiden Hill's going to be a UFA. They got a lot of money that's coming off the books. They could probably fit Scheifele short term, which would fit.
I'll throw you a team, St. Louis, because they're not rebuilding either.
Okay, that's another
Yeah,
good one.
they moved O'Reilly and then
But
they slot him in.
But the problem is, again, the minute you do that, your window to win becomes very, very short, right? Like, you're gonna have to win
But
with
they're not
Scheifele.
rebuilding. St. Louis is done. They're not going to rebuild. They're not a rebuilding team.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say. Is that
I don't know,
enough? I don't know.
That's to me, that's the most. Well, even the least 2 in a way, depending on how the first round goes. But to me, Winnipeg is the most interesting off-season team where they may change course and just say, you know what, we're rebuilding. We can't go on with
What
this
about
team.
Vancouver?
But what about? I
Uh,
think
not
they already
again.
made up their mind when they signed JT Miller.
No, but that's what I mean. They're all in. So would they be able to get a Scheifele? That's what I'm thinking.
God.
I'm trying to think of a spot for that guy. But anyway, whatever. Like to me, it starts to become unless you're gonna feel like, oh my goodness, all of a sudden these guys have knocked it out of the park. I would not take the risk personally if I'm a team. But
Yeah.
like even if you're gonna get them I mean maybe if I could get them for very little, but that's not what Winnipeg's gonna do. They're not gonna give him away. They're gonna want something of substance for him. So it's gonna be tough.
Even the Islanders may be calling.
I just hate, yeah, maybe. I don't know. If I'm a GM, I don't let it get to this point. That's the way I see it.
I agree with that. You've always said that, and I
Yeah,
totally agree with you.
yeah. You try to be proactive and say, am I going to win before these guys are going to A, want too much money, or B, get too old, or C, both? Like that's just the way it is. You have to, and a guy like Wheeler is already 36-year-old man. Come on, like
You know where he would fit really nice is Minnesota.
That's another team.
Because Minnesota doesn't have a first line center. I think that's probably their biggest problem is that they don't have a first line center. So you slot him in, now they have one.
Yeah.
yeah, that's actually a decent
And
fit. I like that fit. Yeah,
Dumba's leaving, assuming they don't re-sign him, so that
and
they'll have plenty of cap.
yeah,
Don't be surprised. Maybe at the draft, they do somewhere. It's a deep draft, right? And you think about you get to add a Wheeler from the beginning of the year or whoever, Scheifele, and
yeah,
you're willing to give up that for, like you guys said, which team is that close to cup or adding someone like that?
it's
You're
gonna
willing to risk a mid-round or
right,
low 20s first round pick, right? It's possible, right?
right. I like the
No,
Minnesota
I was
pick.
gonna say a lot has to do with if they make the playoffs or not, because that's gonna. How do you put up with that if they choke like that? You can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean the success in the postseason is gonna matter for sure. It's gonna. I don't know. I just don't feel. If I'm a Jets fan, that's what I try to think of. If like, okay, close my eyes and I'm a Jets fan now, and I start to look at the situation, then I'll be like, okay, are we gonna win? Like we got Nino Niederreiter, like this is our guy that we're going in with, and then I'm looking next year. I mean, maybe they're gonna say they got another year because they don't really lose any huge players next year. That's probably what they're going to do. They're probably just going to say, yeah, you know what? We're going to go with what we got and add another guy and Niederreiter's sign for the year after. And that's probably what they're doing. They're probably just going to see how far they get this year. And then they're going to they likely won't rebuild, Dave. Just looking at what I'm seeing now, like I'm looking at their cap friendly page. I don't see them. I think that they're going to go the distance with Scheifele. That's what I think. They're not going to address it. Yeah.
He wanted to leave last year. Remember there was
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well,
So
he said exactly what we're saying now. He's like, "What's the direction of this team?" Like, if you're a player,
yeah.
you're entitled to ask that question, right? Especially if you're a core player. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, "Where are we
Yeah.
going, guys? Like, I need some help around me. What are we planning on doing here?" Right? I see all these other teams getting these good young players, and we don't have anybody who's going to play with me, right? Like, that's what he's thinking. But at least I kind of like that because you want a player that wants to be a part of the solution, not just get paid and shut up, right? I like a guy like that. That's just me.
It feels like they wasted so many. Like it's so much talent. It's like their window closed a while ago, and I think it's just fumes now. I think they waited too long to make any kind of changes, drastic changes. Because really,
Yeah, that Line A deal was the big one where they traded for Dubois, and now Dubois doesn't want to commit to them long term, and like that's another mess, right?
Hey,
Always.
I don't
one
know
of
if you guys have you guys ever looked at Minnesota on friendly?
Yeah,
oh why
a bunch of times. What am I looking for?
Well, this year is one thing, but for the next 2 years, they're going to be paying 14.7 million off their cap for the buyouts of Parise and Suter. That's almost 15 million of their cap gone
Oh shit.
because of buyouts. And if you look at the Parise and Suter contracts,
Yeah, you're
they
right.
would have been UFAs in 24, 25, 2 more years. So those 2 years that they're going to be paying these buyouts, they could have just had the players because
Yeah,
they're both still NHL players.
I
They're
never,
both playing. Yeah.
I never liked that buyout. I never liked
Oh
buying
my
out players to
goodness.
begin with. I don't know what
Not like
Yaren was
that.
thinking. This is crazy. The amount of money that they paid is nuts off of their
They're
cap.
going to be paying these guys until 27, 28. These guys would have been off the books in 2 years, and I don't know why they wouldn't have just kept them if they're going to be paying them almost 15 million. I don't know.
They're
This
gonna-
is crazy.
They're gonna be paying these guys more than the length of Kaprizov's contract.
Oh my god! I knew they had this cap problem with these buyouts, but like when you really like dig into it and look at it,
That's
you
a
just
big
shake
chunk,
your
eh?
head.
That's a big chunk. Well, hey,
That's a Matthews.
how do you win? You can't win. Sorry, you can't. Like those
That's
are
probably what's been holding them back, right?
yeah. Like this is in this league especially. Like salary cap matters. How you evaluate the contracts and how you sign the contracts, and you can't make too many mistakes, and those are two monstrous mistakes, right? Like,
Yeah, Fletcher was. I don't think he was the best GM.
was it Fletcher or Guerin? I think Guerin did it, man.
No. Oh,
No,
the buyout.
Yeah, pretty sure
Oh no,
Guerin
I was
did
talking
it.
about the signing of the contracts.
No, I'm
because
talking about the
Fletcher is the one who gave
buyouts.
them those
Yeah,
monster
okay,
contracts.
okay. If you're gonna sign those deals, I didn't. I remember when they got both of them at the same time, right? Like there were the two UFAs. Anytime
Yeah.
you go to the UFA market, guys, we've talked about this before. You're gonna overpay because the market is set by 30 teams, not you, right? And that's you really can't. You got to be careful when you're adding a final piece.
It's true. And they were in their 30s already, and it was when the transition was happening to more young teams and
Right.
speed. And
Right.
but I remember when that happened, everyone thought, "Oh fuck, look out for Minnesota now." And total opposite.